أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل وسلم على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you again to the ABSA Network and all of the different organizations for having me this evening. Unfortunately, I couldn't participate with you all live. But I did want to share with you a really beautiful hadith from Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam that speaks about a concept that's a little bit more broad than friendship, but nonetheless, I thought that it would be important for me to share it with you all this evening, inshallah. First of all, let me say that within Nahj al-Balagha and the other ahadith of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, and even by extension, the ahadith of Ahlul-Bayt, peace and blessings be upon them, undoubtedly speak about the importance and significance of friendship and the qualities of friends and the characteristics of friends and so on and so forth. But I thought to share with you all one of the most famous and oft-quoted traditions of the commander of the faithful, alayhi salam, because it doesn't only teach us how to be a friend, but in reality teaches us how to be a human being. In the famous narration, he states, خَالِتُ النَّاسِ مُخَالَتَةً إِن مِتْتُم مَّعَهَا بَكَوْا عَلَيْكُمْ وَإِنْ إِشْتُمْ حَنُّوا إِلَيْكُمْ. He, alayhi salam, he says, live amongst people in such a way that if you die, they weep over you. And if you are alive, they crave your company. In the Arabic language, the word khalata, which is the first word that the Imam alayhi salam uses, khalitun nas, it means when you have a mixture of a lot of different things. So the Imam alayhi salam is not only saying live amongst people in such a way, but he says mix with people. When we often think about people who we love to spend time with, oftentimes they are those who know how to socialize, who know how to communicate very well. In fact, in a lot of the work that I do, I work with a lot of young folks, particularly around issues surrounding marriage and whatnot. And a lot of the challenges that many people encounter with regards to marriage, or really with regards to any sort of social interaction these days, is one party often inadequately communicating, meaning they're not communicating very well. Someone is being ambiguous, someone is being unclear, someone is just not opening up about the way that they feel about a particular thing. What we learn from Ahlul-Bayt alayhim salam is the importance of being a good communicator, khalitun nas, and living amongst people, being accessible virtually. When you take a look at different leaders of history, when you picture the word leader in your mind, what's the first word that comes to your mind? Oftentimes it's someone who is sitting on a throne or ruling with an iron fist, so to say. But when it comes toward the Prophet and his family, peace and blessings be upon them, they were quite the contrary, meaning that they were so accessible to their communities that many a times their communities, they didn't even believe that they were prophets, that they were imams. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quotes this within the Holy Quran. وَقَالُوا مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. How can this man be a messenger? How can he be a prophet? Meaning the Meccans would say, who eats food like us, and he walks in the marketplace with us. So over here, the Imam alayhi salam speaking about the importance of being with the people, meaning spending time with others, socializing, communicating well. خَالِتُ النَّاسِ مُخَالَتَةً, in such a way. Mix with them and socialize with them and live with them and communicate with them, such in mittum ma'aha bakaw alaykum, that if you die, they were to weep over you. We don't like to oftentimes talk about death, but it's really, really important for once in a while for us to virtually reflect upon our legacy. If I were to die tomorrow, how many people would have been touched by my interactions? How many people would be touched by me so much to the extent that they would literally be moved to tears? On the flip side, how many people, might celebrate the fact that I no longer live in the world, meaning they, feel it as a relief. And I'm sure that as well as in my experience, how many people have come and they've told me particularly during the pandemic, that they've lost a family member. There was one girl who came to me and said, I almost feel happy that my mom passed away because of how difficult she was with us. It was like a relief that was removed from their backs. That's something really, really frightening to think about. Would anyone actually find relief? Would anyone actually find relief if I were to pass away? Na'udhu billahi min dhalik. We need to be careful then about our actions and the way that we interact with people, such that if we were to die, people were to grieve, they were to weep. Not because they didn't submit to the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but more than that, they just miss being around your presence. خالط الناس مخالطة إن متم معها بكوا عليكم. Live amongst people in such a way that if you die, they weep over you. وإن عشتم حنوا إليكم. And if you are alive, they crave your company. Are there people who love to be around us? And when they are around us, do we pick them up the way that we ought to? Do we encourage their spiritual growth? Do we sort of cultivate them to being better believers, better Muslims, better Shia, whatever it might be? Or do people like to be around us because, I don't know, because we push away their responsibilities from them? Individuals often fall on two sides of the spectrum with regards to this latter. Sometimes we like to be around people who make us forget about all of our problems, or we just want to sort of, turn off everything in our life. So we turn on Netflix, or we go towards social media because we want a distraction from the real important questions about life. We do this all the time. People generally, I was leaving my office the other day and I saw one of my, colleagues at New York University who had a really bad day at work. Virtually, he's in charge of all of the dining halls at the university. And there was a leak in one of them, which caused, I don't know how many issues. So I bumped into him in the elevator as we were both leaving. I told him, how was your day? So he told me I had this big issue. So I said, are you going to be okay? He's like, what am I going to do? He said, I'm going to go back home and I'm going to turn on Netflix and I'm going to watch for 3 or 4 hours until I fall asleep because I don't want to think about, anything that I experienced at work today. And I don't want to think about what's going to happen tomorrow. I said, okay. And I think that people generally find outlets via, these platforms where it's very easy to waste time. And I speak to myself before anyone else. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes we go to people, or we are the people, we are the source of getting people distracted from life. But sometimes we have also the potential to be those individuals who draw people back toward answering those questions that are important. I'm not saying it's not good to take time for yourself. No, don't get me wrong. But it's about elevating ourselves and others such that we're able to find contentment in something deeper. You can either watch Netflix, but sometimes if you were to read a book, and I don't even, mean an Islamic book, but when you learn, when you go through a spiritual experience, when you go through an intellectual experience, sometimes it brings a contentment, that is unlike anything else that you experience. So we need to be that source, is what I'm trying to say, for those around us. Let's go back to the hadith and I'll conclude. The Imam, again, alayhi salatu wasalam, he states, خَالِتُ النَّاسِ مُخَالَةً إِن مِتُّم مَعَهَا بَكَوْا عَلَيْكُمْ. Live amongst people in such a way that if you die, they weep over you. Leave behind that legacy. Leave behind that impact and that imprint in the hearts of people. وَإِن عِشْتُمْ حَنُّوا إِلَيْكُمْ. And when you're alive, they crave to be around you. If there are people who don't prefer to be in your presence, you don't have to go back to them and tell them, why don't you like me? No. Be reflective internally. How can I be a better person? How can I be a better friend? How can I be a better brother, sister? How can I be a better spouse? How can I be a better whatever? Life is about improvement. And even within our social interactions, our friendships, it's important that we improve and we also help those around us improve. And if we feel that that might be challenging, that we are being taken away from our values based on that social circle, then 2 steps. Number 1, to really think whether we should continue to engage in that social circle. And number 2, to think about why you can't elevate, or I can't elevate myself or ourselves collectively and those around us toward reaching that higher station that we desire in terms of our service and in terms of our connectivity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with that, again, the Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, he leaves us with this incredible advice about not only how to be a better friend, but how to be a better human being, a better woman, a better man. So live amongst people in such a way that if you were to die, they weep over you. And if we're alive, that they crave our company. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq. Walhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi al-tahirin. Thank you again.